Hello and welcome to another analysis of what I would say is my favourite TV show at the moment. Apologies that this video took me so long to make. Life does unfortunately have a tendency to get in the way sometimes, but enough of that. Let's talk about White Bear. This story poses more questions than it answers, which in a sense is absolutely excellent because it lets the brain fill in the blanks, but also challenges us on what we would believe to be true or not. This episode also discusses the ethics of torture and the worrying methods of punishment that technology can offer us in the future. Could we possibly see this type of scenario become a reality in the future? I would say not very likely, but then again, people thought of 1984 as a fantasy, and look where we are now. The start of each day sees Victoria waking up in a room with no recollection of who she is or what she's doing there. For 27 minutes of the episode, we are completely unaware of what may have happened before she woke up that morning, which is roughly 2/3 of the episode's length. When reflecting on the episode, it would be a dishonest observation to suggest that this 27 minutes of the episode is of much significance, seeing as this segment relies on leaving information out to create a tense atmosphere and allow us to identify with the main character. The fact that this girl has had her memory wiped from the offset immediately allows the viewer to sympathize with the character and the horrific shit she goes through. None of the questions she asks throughout the first 2/3 of the episode are ever given a straight answer or are just straight up ignored, and is most often reminded that safety lies at this White Bear outpost. The audience and Victoria will be incentivized to discover this location because of it being the title of this episode and therefore must have some significance to the story. In doing this, as well as slinging her out from the masses of people with weapons and mobile phones, she is made to feel like the hero of her own story of self-discovery by overcoming an end goal. This is a very typical form of narrative that not only manipulates the audience into believing the narrative that Victoria is being led along with, but also manipulates Victoria as she begins to buck up a little courage and pick up a gun that turns out to be nothing more than confetti.
Good thing I grabbed a space weapon!
We are given several hints with regards to how Victoria ended up in the situation she has found herself in, such as when the white symbols appear in multiple locations at the park. This symbol was supposedly tattooed on her dead husband's back, but this symbol is coloured white on screens, bridging the connection between the murder of a young girl, who lost her white bear, and the love she had for this man she once knew. These, along with the flashes from the mobile phones, often trigger images of the original event that are dotted throughout the episode. I would argue that these memories she keeps seeing are manufactured due to the symbol of the tattoo being seen within the static that comes before and after each memory we see. The calendar is also highlighted in the first scene, perhaps making the audience wonder what the significance of the specific date is, but doesn't serve any other purpose than to establish that this daily routine has been going for a long time. Despite these clues, however, there isn't a shred of evidence that the claims made against Victoria are true. The only testimony we have is from people who weren't even at the crime scene: the judge, the actors, and the general public, and the accused has had her memory wiped too, so what truly happened is anybody's guess. By having the episodes focused predominantly on the apparatus of the punishment she faces, this takes the attention away from whether she actually did anything or not, because ultimately it's not that important. It opens up the discussion on the ethics of torture and the way the general public views crime and punishment. By just examining the name Justice Park is enough to send shivers down one's spine. Just looking at the words reminds me of Jurassic Park, where both imply that there's something dangerous locked inside, but kept tame by the people that work there. To give it more connotations of a theme park, we as the audience are informed that the public needs to pay in order to get in, and are given safety procedures like keep your distance as if they're going to go on a dangerous ride. The customers are also told as a third rule to enjoy themselves, which you wouldn't think would appear in a theme park because you go to one to have fun anyway. By telling people that they must enjoy themselves displays a rejection of any other opinion on what's being displayed at this park. If you aren't having fun watching an individual be terrorized by mobs of people armed with mobile phones and weapons, then you must be supportive of what the criminal did, so to speak. That's the message I'm getting from this rule anyway, but this fusion of theme park entertainment with justice and torturing criminals certainly appears to be a very appealing experience for consumers, but adds a whole new dynamic to how criminals could potentially be punished in the future. What this park is for certain, however, is a method of profiting from the suffering of others. This concept is commonly frowned upon in Western culture, but I think the episode poses the question of whether or not it is ethical to put this moral code aside when the others are criminals. It certainly doesn't seem to bother the actors and staff at the park that much, because not only are their wallets being filled, but also because they seem to genuinely believe that what they're doing is right. Baxter's big theatrical speeches towards the the end of the episode would certainly indicate this, but again, this may just be a performance on his part. He could just be doing his job. The other big question that looms overhead when watching this is whether this is a good idea or not, based on the fact she will never remember her previous encounters in the park, nor will she remember any future ones either. She will probably wake up each time with pain around the back of her neck, but interestingly, it looks to me like she is in more pain in the 2 times she wakes up at the end of the episode compared to the awakening in the opening of the episode. This could perhaps indicate that by the end of her time at the park, she will be battered and bruised after many years of forgotten torture. I did wonder throughout the episode if a park like this would be state-funded, and initially I thought it unlikely to be so, considering this is basically a prison facility for one person, which for a government would probably be considered a waste of investment. However, because it is self-sustaining through public investment, and because it has been going for longer than 18 days, it does make me wonder whether there are other facilities where criminals faced with similar convictions are held and treated with the same cyclical nature of punishment. There certainly is a connection between what Victoria supposedly did and the sentence that the judge passed. I found it quite interesting that, like the innocent girl the couple abducted, Victoria is seemingly recorded by complete strangers whilst being terrorized. The company that owns the White Bear Justice Park certainly save a lot of money in this aspect. I mean, why pay for CCTV when you can just get the public to do it for you? One might think this is a very fitting punishment for the crime she committed, but does this make the participants and the actors any better than Victoria? Baxter also encourages the audience to take as many pictures as they can in order to humiliate this woman on a broader social level than what is seemingly contained within this park. This gives Victoria the equivalent of celebrity status, where the only difference is that she's hated. I make this claim on the basis of how she is paraded through the streets in the car driven by Baxter. The vehicle itself looks like one of the Pope-mobiles designed to protect the Pope as he is driven around major cities without being assassinated, and undoubtedly this car too is to prevent such an event happening. The car drives down a straight road with fans and spectators lined up behind metal fences waiting to see this woman, like a red carpet showing of some kind. When we see her in the car, there are these lights placed around the edge of the car frame which remind me of the lights that are placed around theatrical dressing room mirrors. This visual metaphor describes Victoria being forced to reflect upon her actions, despite of course having no recollection of the event, through her witnessing the national reaction to her actions. Even more interesting is the chair and the clamps resemble the electric chair, posing the question of whether or not her punishment is worse than death or not. All of this collectively gives off the impression to me that the entertainers and the people are the ones in control, but are entirely dependent on Victoria being alive for the cash to keep flowing into their pockets, and as the old saying goes, the show must go on. Thanks for watching. Comment below or sling me a message on Twitter where we'll continue this discussion.
I know you.
Do you? Well, where do we meet if you know me?